We are recording this evening, so please also refrain from using any identifiable information about yourself or others. And welcome, and I think we're ready to rock. So I'd like to begin by thanking the many of you who support COTAD and the events and the initiatives in the midst of all of the wild things happening in our worlds right now from a variety of levels. And so thank you for all of you for making a commitment to be here tonight. And thank you also to our donors. Thank you for making initiatives and events and the different materials that we're able to offer through COTAD possible through your donations. All of us are volunteers in this organization. We genuinely appreciate your support. And we also are working to create some scholarships. So please hold for that and know that your donations are appreciated. We are a 501c3 organization. I'd also like to draw your attention to this community agreement tonight, especially for times when you're engaging with others in the discussion spaces. Please attempt to adhere to our community agreement. So welcome to the third session of Ignite 2. Ignite was born in the summer of 2020, for those of you who might not be too familiar with our Ignite series. This series was born out of the necessity to engage in action centered around anti-racism. In the words of our COTAD co-chair, Dr. Arame Enrichment, the Ignite series is based on empowerment, mobilization, and most of all, action. So tonight, as we engage in the final event of Series 2, we hope you have been and you will continue to be truly ignited to stimulate change within the context of the OT environments and educational programs you are connected to. We have a really packed agenda tonight again. We'll give a great opportunity to hear from presenters. We'll then move into small group discussions. We'll have a large group discussion and closing. You can follow our event tonight on social media, and thank you to Devlin New and Michelle De Jesus who are behind the scenes making that possible. So to begin this evening, for those of you who might not be too familiar with COTAD, I wanted to invite Dr. Catherine Hoyt to share a welcome from COTAD. And Dr. Hoyt is a postdoctoral research associate at Washington University in St. Louis. Dr. Hoyt is also the founding and current director or chair of COTAD. Dr. Hoyt?
I'll just give a really brief rundown. I bet a lot of you have seen COTAD somewhere in your lives. Hopefully you've been able to attend some of the previous COTAD Ignite events, or you have a COTAD chapter at your university, or you have in other ways been touched by some of the incredible events that COTAD has done. I am very proud to be the founding chair for COTAD, but also very excited to share that we recently held our elections and Dr. Rame Anvarisade will be taking over my role as chair in the coming months. So that's really exciting for the growth of our organization. If we could go to the next slide, please. Just to familiarize everybody a little bit, our mission is to empower occupational therapy leaders, and we believe everybody is a leader, whether that's in your clinical environment, in your school, with your peers, or with your colleagues, to engage in practices that increase diversity, equity, and inclusion for a more transformative occupational therapy profession. We envision a future where occupational therapy is accessible, inclusive, and effective for everybody. And that I see some people laughing. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. If you haven't seen too many things with COTAD yet, I just wanted to provide a really brief overview with some of the things that COTAD is doing. COTAD Ignite series for over this summer has been a wonderful way that we've been able to engage with so many people around the country and around the world. But for those that have been engaged with COTAD for a little bit longer, you may have seen our COTAD Chapters program, which Dr. Anvarisade will talk a little bit about later on this evening. That program has touched over 85 universities, which means that they have a local program or students that are in the process of developing a local chapter where they are engaging in these types of conversations locally at their school. We believe that this is essential because while we can have a large nationwide conversation like this, every institution and every clinical environment is going to be a little bit different and have unique needs and unique conversations that need to happen. So this is really a really important core part of COTAD. As you've heard already tonight, another pillar of COTAD is COTAD Ed, which focuses on supporting people in academia, the educators and the professors that are building the future of our profession. This evening is hosted by COTAD Ed, and we're excited to have many materials and a wide network of professors and educators that are in that field. So if you're interested in getting engaged, please connect with COTAD. You can send us an email. COTAD Ed has their own email at cotad.ed@gmail.com, or you can connect with us on social media and we can get you onto their mailing list. Something else that I'm just ecstatic about is our Minority Mentorship Program, or MMP. The Minority Mentorship Program has grown so much in the last 3 years that we've had to modify how we do it so that we can do it in the most effective way possible, so that mentors and mentees are able to get a very meaningful experience that's based in evidence and has an outcome that helps to, hopefully, our goal is to increase the diversity of our workforce and our profession, but also in our leadership. That program now has over 200 people active, over 100 active dyads. So that's just an incredible effort that's led by Megan Lambert and Helen Valencia. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to the Minority Mentorship Program at cotad.mmp@gmail.com. Sorry, and then the last thing I think is COTAD Community on that previous slide. I'm just trying to remember if you can, yeah. So this, I'm super excited about this, and we'll be announcing the COTAD Community Initiative that will be aligned with Conference 2021 in the coming few weeks. But COTAD Community is an initiative that came out of a conversation at conference. Actually, we were all at a national conference and talking about the need that we wanted to feel a little bit more connected. We have thousands of therapists invading a city, and we aren't doing too much to support that local community. So the COTAD Community Project, the purpose of it is that we can engage a little bit more, and while we invade a city and learn a whole lot about our profession, that we're able to give something back as well. That project is led by 4 emerging leaders and is on our website. You can see the project that we did last year. They gathered over 1,100 items for a women's shelter in Boston and put together over 500 wellness kits. This year's project is going to be awesome. I'm so excited for it, but I'm going to wait to roll it out till everything's finalized. But it's going to be designed so that everybody can get engaged no matter what type of format you'll be attending conference in. We'll see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Sorry, I always talk too long.
Thank you so much. And so now to introduce our COTAD Minority Mentorship Program, I'd like to invite Helen Valencia to the microphone.
Thanks, Lexi.
Helen.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Helen is a board member of COTAD. She's also a pediatric occupational therapy practitioner from New York. So welcome, Helen.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Helen Valencia. I am the assistant coordinator for the Minority Mentorship Program, and we call that MMP. And I have a slide of a picture of the lovely Dr. Megan Lambert, who couldn't be here. She is the coordinator of the program. We're both COTAD board members. And actually, you can go to the next slide. Thanks, Lexi. Just a little bit about the program. It was founded in 2015 by Dr. Natasha Smith. She is a former member of COTAD. Like Dr. Hoyt mentioned, it has grown exponentially in the last year. The program was primarily designed to support OT and OTA students of underrepresented backgrounds. We work on matching those students with a mentor in the field. We've actually also expanded to include new practitioners and also pre-OT students, and we have gotten a lot of new applications from pre-OT students in the last few months. And a majority of our mentors also come from underrepresented backgrounds themselves, and they want to give back in this form through mentorship. One of the goals of MMP, an important goal, is to impact the retention of minority students by promoting personal, intellectual, and professional growth. Mentees are asked to be proactive in growing their professional relationship with their mentors, and mentors are encouraged to assist the mentees with goals and with resources. The program expectations are for them to connect at least once a month for a total of 12 months. And during this time, the MMP...
Is gonna come home soon?
Sorry, is there a question? No. And during this, okay, I'll go on. During this time, the program provides an orientation and resources such as a program manual to encourage the growth of the mentor and mentee relationship. And currently, we are working on a cohort model. Dr. Hui mentioned the program has grown a lot. So to streamline the process, we are doing 2 cohorts per year. And most participants do connect virtually as this is a national program. Right now, we are filled, our mentee pool is filled up, but we're still looking for mentors for the spring 2021 cohort. If anyone's interested, we'll be making those matches in January. And we'll start accepting new mentee applications next summer for the fall 2021 cohort. So for any further information, just go to the COTAD website, go to the top of the website, says get involved, and you'll find our minority mentorship program page with our email, mentor application. And for any mentees who are interested, you could be put on a mailing list for information about when that application will open up. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helen. And obviously, as one of our topics this evening is supporting students, this could be a definite opportunity for student support. So to begin our discussion this evening, tonight we'll focus on pathway models to occupational therapy. So those different structured initiatives that support pre-occupational therapy students with underrepresented backgrounds to enter the profession of occupational therapy. And we'll also be discussing OT student support. So as we strive to engage in action centered around anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion in OT education programs, we need to critically consider the experience of those aiming to enter our profession, in addition to those who are growing to become our future practitioners. So to begin this evening, I wanted to just share a few things that came out of my capstone project work when I was completing my post-professional OTD at UW-Madison. And in my project, I aimed to develop a design of a pre-occupational therapy model that would support students with underrepresented backgrounds. And when I began the literature review for this project, some common barriers experienced by underrepresented students aiming to enter graduate programs in health or allied health were identified. So this list is obviously not all encompassing, and I would encourage each one of you to really critically consider the systemic barriers and the unique experience that underrepresented students face when aiming to enter your specific educational programs. Part of my work for my capstone project included a critical article analysis where I examined articles that demonstrated pathway models for students pursuing graduate programs in health, allied health, or STEM. And the article also needed to include enrollment data or statistics regarding the success of the program. So when I grouped those different articles together, it was determined that structured initiatives have a high likelihood of success, and underrepresented students who participate in these initiatives absolutely have an evidence-based proven likelihood of gaining enrollment into allied health or medical school programs. Also included in this project is something that remains open in my work at UW-Madison, and with Dr. Kristen Pickett, we still have an open research study taking place that includes semi-structured interviews with underrepresented students on the UW-Madison campus, asking them what they would strive to see or what they would like to see or the different support they would really like to have at Wisconsin as we develop this model. So when I'm looking at those preliminary results from those interviews with students, and I looked at what was identified in the programs that were included in my critical article analysis, some strong consistencies were identified. And so when thinking about programs and how to best support pre-occupational therapy students with underrepresented backgrounds, it's really important to consider opportunities to develop social and psychosocial support or connections, content centered around admissions preparation, financial support opportunities, and professional opportunities. So please stay tuned. This work remains in progress, and I hope I'll have much more to share as I'm able to complete the design and offer the program at Wisconsin. So to share a discussion about some different pathway development at Washington University in St. Louis, I would like to welcome Dr. Lisa Tabor Connor. Dr. Lisa Tabor-Connor is the Executive Director of the Program in Occupational Therapy and is a Professor of Occupational Therapy and Neurology at Washington University School of Medicine. She would like to be called Lisa, please. So Lisa, welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me. I am extremely humbled. I can't say I have answers. I have only things that we're attempting to develop that I want to share with you tonight, and a little bit about our journey here. I guess, I jotted down some notes. I don't have any slides that I'm going to share with you, but I jotted down some notes that things that our program is trying to do to both create some pathways as you're describing it, and also some of the ways that we're trying to make, you can't just get people to the program and not think about the impact of the structure and the supports and the ways that you deal with all of your students, and how, what's your basic philosophy about supporting students in an educational program. So I think, there's some things that we're doing at the program level that also, I think, support students from diverse backgrounds. So I'll share a tad about that. And since my charge is to talk about pathway program, I'll talk about that first. And then if we have time, you can just give me the hook anytime.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Lisa, thank you.
All right, so and this is something that is still in the very earliest stages of development, and I have to credit a group of students that came to us from our program in May, shortly after George Floyd's murder, and said, there's some things that aren't working here for us, and we want change. And so we started meeting with this student group this summer, and we've sort of examined with them every aspect of the program, and they're calling themselves the Black OT Student Collective. I won't give all their names because I didn't ask their permission, but I really appreciate the work that we've been doing together, and appreciate them joining with us as partners to think about all the different ways that our program can change, grow, and develop, and sort of live into the ideals that we want to incorporate and represent to the outside world. We're working on the inside first. But one of the opportunities for us was we already have a contract with a local HBCU, Harris Stowe State University, that's here in St. Louis. And that we have a 3-2 contract with them, which is an opportunity for students to come in their third year of undergraduate and finish a master's 2 years later, and they receive their undergraduate degree from Harris Stowe and their master's degree from us. But honestly and truly, we've had a few students from Harris Stowe, and we didn't do right by those students. I think we all recognize that was not working. Whether or not we had this 3-2 contract is irrelevant. It could be students in their senior year that come to us, or students who've graduated. We just weren't doing a very good job of supporting students and welcoming them and including them and understanding the impact of our biases and structures on those students. So one of the things that arose as a result of both the OT Student Collective and your Ignite panel from July the 11th, that was perspectives from interdisciplinary voices. And you had on your panel Dr. Terry Richardson, a physical therapist from USC. And Terry started talking about an early assurance program that he's developed with Xavier University in Louisiana to USC. And even before the session was over, I had, through the back channels, gotten his email address and connected with him, and we met that next week, and we have hired him as a consultant to help us with this program to build the pipeline from Harris Stowe to Washington University. And I can't be more thrilled. I mean, it's been really fun talking with Terry and working with Terry and getting this program off the ground. We have, I think the other key element of this is we're just forming our work group inside the program that's going to work with Terry and reaching out to Harris Stowe to really start the conversation. They have a brand new president who's really interested in STEM education, and I'm really looking forward to working with him to build this program. And part of it is a mentoring program. So we're not going to just worry about admissions, and then, when students arrive fully formed, they will plop into our program and everything will be seamless. Our plan is to work with them early in their undergraduate career to talk with them about, how can we help you and support you in all the educational requirements that you need to enter OT school, and how can we help you write your essay, and how can we help you demystify our admissions process, and can we have you come for a summer program? So we're exploring all those opportunities. Essential to that is having a committee of people from different backgrounds and different constituencies. So we have students on this committee, we have alumni, we have people who are already working with Harris Stowe that are on our recruitment staff. We have some members of the Black OT Collective that are joining in. And I have a student who's working in my lab from Harris Stowe right now who recently graduated, and he's going to sort of give us the inside student perspective. So I think, the enthusiasm, the long-term commitment, I think is essential to this effort. And I'm excited to see where this goes. And we plan to measure what we're doing to see if we can demonstrate our success, and to make sure that these efforts are not going, falling flat. And obviously we'll be seeking feedback from the Harris Stowe students. And our goal really is just to get them into OT as a profession in general. If they don't come to our program, that is fine. We want them to be part of the profession. So we're really going to put resources into this and engage. I guess, I'm going to do like one sentence on the other stuff that we're working on, and then I can stop. Okay, I'm obviously excited about it. In January, that seems like so long ago, we had a meeting where we invited people from our community partners, our faculty, our staff, and there were just a few students because it was in the break between semesters. And we had this, what's called an open space technology meeting, and I encourage you to look it up if you don't know what that is. The point of an open space technology meeting is not to have an agenda, but to have a topic and open up the floor to every single person who's participating to propose, a session that becomes the agenda. So we had, the topic was, WashU OT, what could we be doing better in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And from that, we generated 29 different topics. Everybody just came down and said, here's my most pressing thing that I think we need to do. We voted on those topics, and we ended up hosting a day's worth of sessions on 10 of those topics, and then we'll return to the other 19 topics. Catherine Hoyt was intimately involved with this. She has analyzed the data from this meeting and submitted a paper to the Journal of Allied Health that's under review right now about just the meeting and how it can be used to foster discussions about diversity, equity, and inclusion in your organization. So I think, reach out to Catherine if you want to know more. But we established from that themes, and they're, no big surprise when you have 29 different topics and people from all over, your organization participating. We, found out that we needed to do some work in our culture, our policies, support for individual members of our community, and administrative services and initiatives. But I kind of took that meeting as a place to start a strategic plan around diversity, equity, and inclusion in our program. So that's what spurred all of this on. And then, of course, we had, our horrible, unfortunate spring of COVID and George Floyd, and the world has erupted. So we sort of had to hold for a little bit, and now we're back to really kind of digging in deep. We're reviewing our policies and procedures with a diversity lens from people with, disabilities and come from diverse backgrounds and LGBTQ identities, and we're really doing sort of a deep dive. We've already actually used our WashU Black Student Collective to help us write a new grievance policy that's more user-friendly and clear and equitable, and respects students' backgrounds and from where they're coming from. We're planning a new specific orientation to welcome BIPOC students to our program, and we are reviewing all of the educational materials that the program uses to support education, to examine the perspectives from which those materials come from, and help faculty enrich their material bank so that they're introducing topics from different perspectives very early in the curriculum. So those are the major things that we're up to in our program. What this has brought to our attention is that we also need to train our advisors to be better advisors. So we have appointed someone to be sort of the master advisor of advisors, who's going to help educate our advisors with training and also supporting them in being the best advisors they can be. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate you sharing all those developments with us. And we are going to have a large group discussion, so we will have much more time for open questions, but I can offer a minute or two if anyone has a specific question for Lisa at this time. If you'd like to raise your hand or put it in the chat, we can offer a minute or two before we move on to our next presentation.
Lisa, there was a question in the chat. What was the limitation with your initial interactions with Harris Stowe?
That's a really good question. Some of this predates me because I have been the director of the OT program for 1 year and a few months. So I think, first of all, I think, we encourage students to apply. We have a really active recruiter who's very present in Harris Stowe, and we encourage students to apply, but then we either rejected them or, we accepted them and we didn't give them enough financial support to come. So, it wasn't meeting our own goals for, and clearly we weren't doing, a good job with the students, because we're building them up only to get their hopes dashed, right? We need to be really clear what our expectations are, and also meeting people where they are as they're coming through the application process. We just didn't do a good job of that. And then students didn't get supported when they arrived at the program. what I didn't say is that we're also doing a lot of DE&I training, and this might sound extremely naive, but I had assumed that the faculty is where I needed to focus my efforts on DE&I training and getting them to be more open, and that the students had it all figured out. And boy, was I wrong. That was sort of a, oh gosh, of course you work there too. So everybody from the moment they enter the program now is getting diversity, equity, and inclusion formal training. So that, I was enlightened by my student group that microaggressions student to student are really a major problem. It's not just our faculty, obviously, it's our students as well. So, I don't know why it took me so long to figure that out, but that's where we are. So we have a lot of work to do all around to make that relationship with Harris still work.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that information with all of us tonight. So again, we will have time in our open discussion later if anyone has more specific questions. At this time, I would like to move to our next presenter. Dr. Tracy Vause-Erland is an associate professor in the College of Rehabilitation Sciences at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She teaches master's level and entry-level doctoral OT students in the environmental competence courses and evidence-based practice. Dr. Erland's funded research activities focus on patients with complex health and social needs, frailty, neurocognitive disorders, and veterans with traumatic head injury. Her current areas of practice are home-based occupational therapy and primary care services to older adults and their families. Dr. Erland is a faculty member of Jefferson Center of Interprofessional Practice and Education, serving as the project director for JSIPE, I believe. Dr. Erland, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. JSIPE's Innovative Student Hotspotting Program. Tracy is a member of Jefferson's Diversity and Inclusion Council with a focus on recruiting and retaining underrepresented student populations, including sexual and gender minorities. Dr. Tracy Vause-Erland.
Thank you, Alexia. Hi, everyone. I really appreciate you inviting me out. First, my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I've only been on, 15 minutes or so, a little longer than that. And I can really feel, I'm ignited. I'm feeling the excitement, and this is great. I remember Christina Smith years ago, and when this COTAD was just, evolving, and wow, it has really come a long way, and it's so, so exciting. So congrats to all of you for making it where it is now. I'd like to speak to you about one initiative. We're on the wagon at Thomas Jefferson University, so we have a lot of initiatives going on, but the one that's specific to, I think, of interest of you all, and very similar to some of the work that Dr. Connors is doing as well, I'd like to present to you today. So let's see, am I able to move or no? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Just
that's okay.
Give me the go.
Not a problem. I'm also like to pay homage and recognition to my colleagues at Jefferson, Dr. Rebecca Cinco, Dr. Lydia Navarro-Walker, Dr. Tina DeAngelis, and a student, Elisa Lam. They are actually going to be presenting. We're presenting this program at our Ed Summit in AOTA. So I took some excerpts from that, and to make it short, but just to let you know, we're really motivated at Jefferson to move this forward, and this is something that's been going on now for 4 years, so I'd love to share it with you. Okay, next. I keep pressing that button. It's going to take me a minute. Okay. So the Occupational Therapy Summer Training and Enrichment Program for Underrepresented Persons is a 4-week summer program aiming to prepare students to be a competitive OT school applicant. This program has been implemented successfully, as I said, for 4 years, and it prepares students through structured clinical observations, academic workshops, such as a GRE class, resume writing, and interview preparation, interprofessional education and teamwork opportunities, and time with faculty and current OT students. So additionally, this program aims to facilitate the development of time management and professionalism from the start. And it requires, and all the other requisites that are needed to be a successful graduate student and eventually a professional occupational therapist. Students apply by submitting an application and personal essay. And we have a selective committee that comprises of faculty members, admission counselors, and the provost office that we review all of the applicants and discuss them each and determine the top candidates for our participation. Next. So traditionally, admissions to occupational therapy programs focus on GPA, GRE scores, extracurricular activities, et cetera. However, it's been well documented that underrepresented minorities, first-generation college students, and students with socioeconomical challenges often do not have the resources or access to participate in these activities that would enhance their application. Additionally, available evidence in the area of diversity and inclusion speak to the need for students to feel as if they are a part of a community that is inclusive and a reflection of themselves and are culturally rich in the society, such as race, socioeconomical status, and personal background. Evidence has shown that while efforts have been made in the OT profession to address these needs to improve diversity and inclusion, there continues to be a need for intentional, innovative strategies, such as partnering with HBCUs, and I'm interested in the work again that Washio is doing in that, determining dedicated scholarship to support student populations. Money is always the root of all evil here. Awareness of both supports and barriers to success, and an increase in pathway programming to achieve the goals. So we're really focused right now on this, and we know that this program is just a little bit right now, but it's making a difference and it's getting the ball rolling. Next. So with recruitment, when this program was first started, part of the goal was to diversify the health science workforce of Philadelphia to reflect that of its actual makeup. We're about 45%, almost close to 50% African-American in Philadelphia. So we really wanted to reflect our university, to some degree, reflect where our university sits. Therefore, recruitment began at the local colleges and universities within Philadelphia and its surrounding area. But the word spread what we were doing. And by the end, well, by last year, we were receiving applicants as far away from as California. So the word was out about our program. Next. So the curriculum is composed of 6 components: introducing the field of occupational therapy, although people do know what OT is. They are very interested. Some have even applied before. Some are, freshman year, finishing up their freshman year. So we do introduce it on a deeper level. Faculty and current student mentorship is a big part of the curriculum. Vocation exploration, exposing our students to all the different levels of and domains of practice there are in occupational therapy. They get to experience a clinical classroom experience, and components of successful application is a big area that we focus on. And then the 6th is academic success strategies and working closely with other departments to help us with that. Next. So how this works curriculum-wise, it's our wonderful committed faculty who are doing this up above and beyond their duties, but they feel very deeply about this. Knowledgeable OT faculty use their expertise in the field to share with these students as far as skills and clinical exposure. With the support of admissions office and the office of the provost, we were able to put together an interactive curriculum that includes, again, clinical experiencing, shadowing OT practitioners in in the Philadelphia area who were right on board. So it really truly does take a village. It's not only the faculty and other people in the university, but it's also our colleagues in practice. Resume writing, as I mentioned before. And we had this interprofessional day where OT and PT prospective students work together, get to know each other a little bit more, and, you know, what are the values of collaborative professionalism, and that's focused in on that day, on that activity. Time spent in the classroom, I mentioned that, and there's really great faculty, early on, faculty mentoring going on. Just the socialization of having breakfast with these students, having lunch with these students, getting to know them, corresponding down the road with them. And these aren't necessarily students that come to Jefferson eventually, but to have that connection. It did my heart well when I went to conference and a student came up to me, and they were in the they had gotten into University of Pittsburgh. So they didn't go to Jeff, all right, you know, but she was so thrilled to see me. She just thanked me for the opportunity to go through the Step Up program, how much it meant to her, how it really helped her formulate a competitive application. And it was good to see her. Lastly, what we've been doing, and is important, is basically outcome measures. You know, we have a pre and a post program survey, and from the students who, you know, obviously rate it quite highly. They really do enjoy their time with us. But what it really comes down to is tracking acceptance rates in OT programs. So that's next. So since 2016, 33 prospective students have successfully completed the OT Step Up program, and at least 18 have been accepted to OT programs since then. It's important to note that the number of students accepted in the 2019 cohort does not include acceptance data from other OT programs. We haven't gotten that yet. So it's crucial to share and build on knowledge and successes of emerging initiatives like the OT Step Up in order to work to become a more inclusive profession. So, you know, yeah, we'd love if they can come to Jefferson ultimately, but we're thrilled that they're getting into OT programs and doing well. So that's something that we're really excited about, that we're contributing and looking at it as a whole. Next. And so in conclusion, to cultivate a diverse and inclusive workforce that reflects the communities we serve, we must start in the classroom. We're really the gatekeepers. Somebody mentioned that years ago to me, and it really resonates. Programs such as OT Step Up provide clinical and academic opportunities to underserved populations and assist in recruitment of a diverse cohort to increase diversity within the classroom among future clinicians. And I might add, eventually, before I retire out of all of this, is to get more in faculty as well. I think that's very important to model and to be there, and we're hoping that occurs. Furthermore, this program has been combined to form what we have a rehab step-up program now. It's not just OT by itself, and that's really placing more emphasis on interprofessional collaboration and exposure to other professions as well. We also have a OTA program at Jefferson, and we bring them in as well as another option as well. So we're really excited. We're collaborating, as I mentioned before, 2 of HBCUs in Pennsylvania, Cheney and Lincoln University, and really, you know, we have a model of articulation with some of the majority universities that we've worked at over the years. So we're taking that model and just, you know, massaging it a little bit more to fit the HBCU, but that relationship can be the same, you know, meeting with the students, whether freshmen and their sophomore, and keeping them focused, getting them interested in the field, and, you know, just showing them the way, giving them the direction of how to be a competitive applicant. So with that, I'm going to stop. If you want more detail, certainly check us out at Ed Summit.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Erlin. I think we can offer 2 minutes or so for questions again. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add in the chat, or feel free to speak as well?
Does anybody want to know about money? Because it does, the office, the provost's office had the money, and in the beginning, especially the first couple of years, 3 years, then we were able to budget some of this in our new rehabilitation sciences, College of Rehabilitation Science. Right now it's just hot, and so people want to contribute, so we're going to jump on that bandwagon and we're going to take the money. But we're showing outcomes, and I think that's the important thing. That's what they want to know.
Awesome. It looks like we had one question come in the chat, and yes, again, we can continue to discuss in the large group, but did you reach out to high schools to kind of initiate the pathway?
For OT Step Up, no. We focused on junior colleges and colleges. We have other initiatives in which we're focusing on that, but we are really, what do they call it, kind of picking at the lowest branch, or whatever that saying is.
Low-hanging fruit. I like that.
Yes, there you go. And so no, we haven't funneled the high schoolers yet in this OT. I wouldn't say they're not ready, but they don't have that undergraduate start yet. And I do believe we take people for junior year or finishing up associate degree, or they're in their second year about to graduate from junior college. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm just going to grab 2 quick ones. It's an in-person, it says it's an in-person program.
Yes.
And the answer is yes. How many days a week in 4 weeks are required?
It's a 5-day week. Well, actually, we've done it a few ways. Kind of zeroing in on 4 days out of the week, and that Friday was kind of where they could work independently. And so we've designed it differently. Unfortunately, we did not, because of the pandemic and just the shift and change, we were not able to get something up virtually for this project this year. Again, we possibly could have, and we could have evaluated the effectiveness of a virtual program, but there was enough already to keep our OT department running. So
Yes.
We're planning for next year already.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again. And we'll again give a chance for folks to talk more in the breakouts and in our large group. So at this time, I would like to move to our next presenter. I would like to welcome Dr. Stephanie Lancaster. Dr. Lancaster is a member of the COTAD Executive Board, and Dr. Lancaster does a lot of work centered around the topic of culturally responsive teaching. So this is kind of where we want to make our shift into really considering now when students are enrolled in programs, thinking about those components based around retention and support for students in our OT programs. So Dr. Lancaster.
Thank you, Lexi. I appreciate that introduction. So I want to start by talking about what culturally responsive teaching is. It's sometimes abbreviated as CRT, and it's really a teaching approach that builds on the learning capacity of students by incorporating aspects of the learner's backgrounds and interests, as well as their culture. It sounds a lot like what we do in the OT process as OT practitioners. So this is a research-based approach, and I believe that it's really the only way to cultivate an authentic learning community that thrives on equity and inclusion for all students. Next slide, please. When we think about assumptions often made by faculty members who are by and large not from diverse backgrounds or underrepresented minority groups in the profession of OT, what comes to the surface right away is implicit bias. In many cases, what we think about teaching and learning stems from our own experiences as learners. And that's not really an accurate representation of the experiences of others for a number of reasons. As you may know, we all have implicit or unconscious biases. That's really just a cognitive shortcut that our brain uses to sort and categorize information really quickly. Having implicit biases does not mean that one is racist or a bad person. Anytime we encounter someone or something that's new, our brain has this automatic process of associating it with something that we're already familiar with to make sense of what's happening. It's also important to know that biases are involuntary. We don't choose them, we don't choose to have them, and they can, in fact, conflict with our values and how we feel consciously. The other thing about implicit bias is that it's how our it's that we are able to override them some way in some instances, but we can't really overwrite them. There's a very informative article in the Harvard Business Review about this from about a year ago that I'll share after this session on COTAD social media. And it says that rather than assuming we can totally get rid of our unconscious biases, we need to work on interrupting the opportunities for discrimination. I think that's such a powerful statement, and it's something we can all do as OT educators and OT practitioners. Interrupt the opportunities for discrimination that we come across. I've heard people speculate that in grad school, where pretty much all students have good grades and good GRE scores, and where they're all adult learners in a professional program, that these people are or should be aware of their own learning needs and how to address or take care of those needs. Over the past 6 months, while we've mostly been online for OT school, I've heard people say that implicit bias isn't really a factor we need to be thinking about in teaching and learning, especially in classes that are delivered asynchronously, because in that case, there really isn't that face-to-face contact. Actually, though, what we know from an evidence-based standpoint is this isn't accurate. The onus should not be placed on the student. It is our responsibility as educators to approach things from the standpoint of cultural humility and cultural responsiveness in order to ensure that all students have the opportunity to learn, all of them are engaged, and all of them feel a sense of belonging and achievement. Opportunities for unconscious bias in any context, including an online environment, are just as prevalent as face-to-face because we know from research that just a person's name or seeing their name on a roster or maybe seeing their picture in an email or on the learning management system can trigger implicit biases. Next slide, please. I want to share with you tonight a few things in hopes that you take away some specific ideas about how inequity can be interrupted in the classroom. I think it's so important for OT educators to recognize that even small things you do can positively impact the experiences of OT students of color, as well as those in other demographic groups. I like to think that I center my teaching practices around the Maya Angelou quote that says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I strongly believe that it's our duty as educators to recognize that what's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs has to be met before Bloom's taxonomy can be applied. In other words, humans need to have their basic needs met before academic learning can be fully embraced. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some of those specific things that you can do as an educator to make things more inclusive and equitable in the classroom. There are a lot of different layers to this. And the first one that I want to talk about comes into play before a course even begins, and that's course design. As OT educators, we've probably all heard of the term universal design for learning, something that really refers to paying attention to different ways of learning and knowing. I think of this in terms of considering things through different lenses. like that of a first-generation graduate student, or of OT students who are worried about paying their own way through grad school, or who maybe haven't had the most positive of experiences interacting with teachers in the past. One thing that can be done from an instructional design standpoint is to be purposeful in representing different races and ethnicities in case studies, in test questions, and in examples, and in images on slides. Consider the wording that you use in case studies. One example might be using the word parents versus mom or dad, or even versus an adult caring for a child. That's just one example. Be aware of religious and cultural holidays and avoid scheduling class sessions or even work assignments when that conflicts. Think strategically about those learning objectives and how they're expressed, how that learning is measured throughout the course, and how the objectives are communicated to students. Many instructors think of an exam as the best way to assess learning, but that's not necessarily accurate. To be more culturally responsive, we need to adapt the evaluative components in our courses to recognize a greater diversity of students' assets and skills. In my teaching, I try to have at least 2 ways that every learning objective is assessed, especially when one of those ways is through a test or an exam. Other ways that you can have to assess learning are by things like having students create a video, having them make an infographic, or a game or activity. I like to give them a choice whenever I can. One example of that is something that happened in a neurobiology course I taught this past spring, when my students were assigned to create something they could share with others in their class that would help them remember basic facts about different neurotransmitters. That was basically the prompt that I gave them. One student wrote a song, another one drew a cartoon, one of them baked cookies, several of them created drawings, and a few made TikTok videos, and then they shared those with their classmates. So we got some insight into their own strengths. Another area in which small changes can impact equity in a course is through syllabus design. And really what runs parallel to that is the setup of your learning management system, or LMS. If you're teaching at a university that allows some flexibility in either of those things, you can be the first layer of becoming more culturally responsive through creating an inclusive learning environment as an OT educator. If you're at a university that doesn't allow flexibility in that, I would recommend that you apply your advocacy skills to educate people about why these things are important. There's a good deal of information actually out there about what's referred to as an inclusive or an equitable syllabus. And a lot of that stuff centers on the language that's used in that syllabus. People say that a syllabus is a learning contract, but a contract is something that comes from a 2-way negotiation, and that's not what happens with a syllabus. A syllabus is really more of an invitation, and that's how it should be framed. It should be centered on opportunities for learning that come out in the course with a tone that encourages rather than intimidates students. I like to see more language like you're going to get to do this, or we're going to do this together. More of a tone of excitement rather than don't do this, don't be late, don't turn things in late, things like that. Many times when a syllabus contains disciplinary jargon and institutional language, these are things we assume our students understand, but it puts in more of a negative tone. And it really underscores the power imbalance that can really impact the relationship between a teacher and students. I think of a syllabus as a tool for inclusion and really an opportunity to reflect your views and practices as a culturally responsive educator. There's a term I look at in evaluating how my course does in cultural responsiveness, and that's a term called dog fooding. That term is borrowed from the field of marketing, and it means trying something out before it's sold or used by consumers. Read through your syllabus as if you were a student experiencing stress and anxiety, someone whose interactions with teachers or other people in positions of power might not have always been positive, or even just somebody who is the only one who looks like you do, who's in the room or learning space, or has a particular background. Something I've learned to do in writing a syllabus is to include a specific statement in my syllabus that addresses the basic human needs that are identified in Maslow's hierarchy. I specifically put the statement, any student who faces changes securing their food or housing and believes this may affect their performance in the course is urged to contact the Dean of Students for support. In addition, you're welcome to notify me if you're comfortable in doing so. This will enable me to provide any resources I may possess so that I can best support you as a learner and as a person. I also have a section in the syllabus that's under the heading Notes from the Instructor. And I use first person language there and really try to come across as friendly and open. When I talk about the assignments and expectations for the course, I state what the purpose for each is and what the student will gain by completing those things, other than just a grade. In a similar vein, on the course site in the learning management system, I like to include video messages about various things, starting with a welcome video. I think it makes a difference to students, especially who might not have been in a situation like that before, or who are intimidated for their own reasons, to see a smile and hear a welcoming voice and hear an explanation about assignments or lessons that are embedded in the learning management system. Another thing to consider is the cost of textbooks or other required materials. See if your program or your university's library has copies of required books that students can access. If so, include that right in the syllabus. Are there materials that can be accessed, like open education resources, in lieu of an expensive textbook that work just as well? How can we as OT educators lower or eliminate the money students have to spend to get through OT school? When you're developing assignments or projects, considering adding an element that expands learners' understanding or even just their awareness of different cultures and perspectives. Set things up so that they are encouraged or maybe required to access scholarly work from scholars of different backgrounds, whether that's through international journals within our profession or resources that maybe are less mainstream than the ones we usually see used. The last thing I want to say about syllabus design is about due dates and times. I've heard different philosophies about how educators decide when their stuff is due, especially when their sessions are online. When I was a grad student, I had one instructor for several different courses who always made things due on Saturdays at noon. She made a comment somewhere along the way that she thought that would help set boundaries for us and help us enjoy our free time. But instead, it created a lot of additional stress for those of us who worked full time, and we really needed the weekend to complete the assignments that were posted each Monday. In short, guard against imposing your values and assuming that your routines and work habits are the same as your students. If you don't know, ask them. And speaking of asking them, I want to move on to another important small change that you can make, and that has to do with student names. Names not only aid in the construction of somebody's identity, but they also can embody one's heritage, one's culture, and one's family. If you aren't sure how to pronounce a student's name, find out. I like to give an introductory survey that asks what pronouns someone prefers, and I actually ask students to write in the phonetic spelling of their name so that I know how to pronounce it. If you mispronounce it on accident the first time, learn how to do it right for the next time. Some strategies in getting better at names, especially those that we might find challenging because we might not have come across them before, are to repeat the name after the person introduces themselves. I make flashcards with phonetic spelling of my student's name and their photos. And I tell my students that I do this. I sit there and go through the flashcards after, if I can get that information before the first class, I'll do it then, but I certainly do it between the first and the second class. If you hear somebody or see somebody mispronouncing or misspelling someone's name, correct them. And if you find yourself in a situation in which you don't know how to say or spell somebody's name after you've already been told, be upfront, apologize, ask for help, vow to do better. Again, you need to incorporate multicultural perspectives in their teaching through examples you give in class, and that can include through the use of names and visual aids. One thing that's important not to do is to ask a person from an underrepresented group to speak on behalf of that group. Don't single them out and ask them what everyone in their group thinks. This might seem like an okay idea on the surface, but actually it's considered a microaggression. It's also essential to be mindful of the language you use and to be diligent about continuing to learn as part of being culturally responsive. You know, there are aspects of language that change over time. For example, we used to say minority group or someone from a minority group, and now we're thinking that it's better to say underrepresented group. The last thing I want to share with you is on the next slide, if you would advance, please. And it's about feedback from the instructor. This is probably the thing that I have changed the most about my teaching in the 8 years I've been an OT educator. Feedback from the instructor is such an important part of the teaching and learning process. In order for that feedback to be effective, though, it has to be delivered in a way that allows learners to act on it. We want to let our students know that we're paying attention, that we're listening, that we're taking in what they are producing for work, and that we believe they have the capacity to succeed, and also that we care about them as individuals. So I strongly believe it's very important to give individual attention and feedback to students on every assignment. I have learned to use everyday positive language. I think when I first started in my teaching, I used to say, good job and things like that at most, or I would just say you achieved the objectives. But I like to say things now that are more like the way I would talk to a student, even when the feedback is written. Now, one study that I want to bring up that came out a while back, but that has been looked at many, many times since then, talks about how students of color often receive feedback that's not as effective as it could be from instructors who are white. They sometimes refer to this as cushioned feedback in the education arena. This happens when a teacher downplays errors and provides little, if any, information that can be used by the student to improve. It's seen as a common point of disconnection in cross-cultural communications. Really, what's happening is Caucasian instructors are being less precise in their communication in maybe a misguided attempt to equalize a power differential between students of color. And that's really not helpful to those students. Now, something else that's come up recently when we've moved online is the call for students to leave their cameras on. I hear this and I see it in teaching groups on Facebook. And the thing about that, though, is that by requiring a camera to be on, we're really requiring students to let us see into their personal and private world. They might have situations in their homes that they don't want to share with everybody. They also might have internet connectivity issues that are alleviated or helped by turning their cameras off. So I really caution you against putting this out as a blanket rule. Two more things I want to say, and then I'll be done. And this is something I actually put on this slide, and I will share this link. The link is actually in the slide notes. So when we share the PowerPoint, you can see that. I like to give surveys and polls to my students a lot. And I like to personalize those and ask them, how's your stress level? How are things going for you? What can I do better to support you as a learner and as a person? And I get really incredible feedback from students. Sometimes I'll ask them to give me their name. Other times I leave it anonymous, but I will say, if you're putting that your stress level is 10 out of 10, please put your name so I can reach out to you individually and we can figure something out. I want to give them the idea that we're in this together. And the last thing in that same vein that I'll say that I'd like for you to consider is how you set up your office hours. Something that I think is really important to do is to offer flexible office hours. And by flexible, I mean the setting and the time and maybe the format. Research tells us that students of color, especially males, are disproportionately disciplined in K through 12 school for non-specific subjective offenses like being defiant. And as a result, they end up spending valuable instructional time in the office at school instead of in the classroom. And they get maybe a negative idea about what it means to visit with a teacher or go to the office. I tell students very explicitly that I like it when they stop by my office just to chat or to tell me something going on in their lives. I also make sure they know that I'm willing to meet with them in places other than in my office. I meet regularly with students in the campus coffee shop or the library, or I'll stay after class or get there early to talk if they feel more comfortable there than in my office. I'm also available to talk to them after hours if needed, if they schedule that ahead of time. It helps to establish a connection with students when we allow them choice, when we allow them input, and when we get to know them on a personal level. I like to let students choose the music that I'm going to play during a class break. Sometimes that helps me get to know them, and it's probably going to be music that they like better than music I might choose. I like to meet with them individually and ask them, how are you really? And I think that that's part of becoming more culturally responsive. Thank you for your attention. Sorry if I went over a little bit. I feel like I could talk all day on this topic.
Fantastic, Dr. Lancaster. Thank you so much for that valuable information. There was great things coming through in the chat. Absolutely. So to keep us moving, and know that Stephanie will be available in the large group. We know that for sure as well, and is always here as an executive board member of COTAD. So I'm glad that you all found, or what's coming through in the chat is that it was very beneficial content. So thank you, Dr. Lancaster. So at this time, I would like to introduce our final presenter this evening, Dr. Arame Anverzadeh. Dr. Anverzadeh is the Director of Admission and is an Associate Professor at USC Chan, the University of Southern California, Chan Department of Occupational Therapy. She is also the COTAD Chair-elect for our next year as a COTAD organization. So we welcome you this evening, Dr. Arame Anverzadeh.
Thank you, Dr. Remney. Okay, first of all, I just have to say, I think I just texted you like, this Ignite is fire. Like I am just like standing this entire Ignite today, this evening. And Dr. Lancaster, thank you. Actually, thank you to everyone I've been enjoying all of your points and your talks. And Dr. Lancaster, it was kind of like you segued right into what I was going to say, a comment I was going to say. And I was like, I don't have time to elaborate on inclusive pedagogy, but I'm like, yes, high five. So I just want to welcome you all and thank you again for being here tonight. And I would love to just share a little bit more about why it's so important to discuss the value of developing pathways and providing student support in OT education. So thank you, Lexi, for asking me to speak about that. And so to add a bit of context, normally I'm speaking from a COTAD just kind of hat primarily, but today I'm going to speak more on my Director of Admissions hat. And as the Director of Admissions, I, along with my team, developed and established holistic admissions at USC Chan this past year. And this was the first time in the division's history, I am so proud, and I will say this so many times if I can, that we admitted the most diverse cohort ever. And this includes individuals from the Latinx, Black, LGBTQIA+, people with disabilities, veterans, first generation, undocumented, and older learners for the first time in history. 1 year. And so I'm very excited about what this next cycle will look like. So I recently have been speaking a lot about systemic barriers, specifically in OT education, and I discussed a strong link between recruitment, admissions, and retention more in a holistic anti-racism context, and how it really impacts how we practice and how we serve our communities. And so through making these connections, I've been very, very vocal that admissions cannot work in silo. Developing recruitment such as pathways and admission strategies to increase the number of diverse students is only a piece of the puzzle in creating a solution to this issue. And for the sake of time, I'm going to really only discuss what I've been asked to discuss, which is pathways, opportunities. But I do also want you to keep in mind something that Dr. Lancaster really expanded on, is that after you recruit and you admit, that we have to also look at our OT pedagogy and how we are educating our students and how we are preparing our faculty to educate our students. Now that must be included and considered in all of the conversations as we talk about pathways and supporting our students, because I believe it's not about supporting students because they're diverse, but I believe it's about making sure that we have tools in place so that people can be successful. There's a difference in that. So let's talk specifically about recruitment. Now, recruitment strategies must be intentional. You have to ask yourself, are you developing pathway programs focused on the populations you want to see increase within your program? How are these pathways being developed, and what degree of OT exposure do you want to provide? One clear action step, and I think Dr. Irhaland and Dr. Connor, you also spoke about it, is really developing relationships with historically Black universities, but you have to really identify who are your partners. We are creating at USC, Dr. Connor spoke a little bit about it, creating pre-OT clubs as well as a pathway to increase OT exposure through a summer institute at USC. Specifically at Xavier is where the summer institute is going to be created for, and pre-OT club for Xavier, and now Hampton University. So very excited that we're having conversations with Hampton. So this summer institute will be interdisciplinary. Dr. Richardson is actually somebody that we invited to speak in our Ignite series, and he's part of the PT faculty at USC Chan. This program will be free of charge. This program will be a duration of 3 weeks, and it will expose applicants to OT education, practice, and research from with diverse representation. So there's a difference with just exposing, but being very intentional about making sure there's diverse representation exposed as well. We also will have a portion of that institute focused on admissions and mentorship. And I actually I wasn't even going to speak to this when Dr. Connor brought it up. I actually became really excited because I can see clear action steps that are happening because of the Ignite series. And I want to make that connection because the fact that we invited Dr. Richardson, who was a PT, to speak about some of the Summer Institute and the programs that we're developing together, and now that he's consulting for WashU, is a direct link of the impact and changes that we're seeing that are happening within these conversations and these consistent dialogues about action steps to make a difference. So not just having conversations, but putting those conversations into action. So I was really, really excited to see how this was, how Ignite really created this relationship and is creating change across the country. So high five to that. Also, I recently, another example of developing a pathway is with your school's cultural centers and or diversity, equity, inclusion centers. USC's cultural centers are located on the main campus, which is where mostly the undergraduate students are located. So the OT division, just to give you a little context, is located on the health science campus, which is about 20 minutes away from the main campus. And that campus doesn't have any cultural centers, which is problematic in itself. That's a whole nother conversation, but it has no support on that campus. So the OT, so basically, since the cultural centers are on that campus, it's a nice opportunity to develop a relationship with them and increase OT exposure to diverse students who are already attending USC. It's like the best kind of pathway to create, right? So I recently collaborated with the Latinx and the African American Cultural Centers by hosting an event about microaggressions, and not just microaggressions, but also the impact on students' mental health, as well as provided strategies to be able to respond to microaggressions. We know microaggressions, but how do you respond to them when they happen is what we really need to start talking about even more. And so since that event, both centers have invited OT to present at student welcome receptions. They've asked us to be keynotes. They've asked us to host events. They've asked us to collaborate on really developing cultural centers at the health science campus, and that's from building relationship. And so for me, it makes me think, okay, well, OT is at top of mind. So whenever they're thinking about organizing an event, they're thinking about OT. And from that one event, which was in February, right before the pandemic, this is not something that's been in place for years. It is just being intentional about what you're creating. We already have students who are applying to the OT program. Again, to make another connection is that these individuals who are getting exposure from these cultural centers can also join the Summer Institute, another pathway. A third pathway that I want to speak to you about is really something that I think is one of the most powerful tools that we could all use across this country, is collaborating and connecting with your local community colleges. And here we also have Cal State University, where I'm located in Los Angeles, or in California. And so we have identified resources and we've identified supports for our undocumented UNDACA applicants. This is something that we're really focused on at USC Chan, is providing these resources for these applicants. But I've also noticed that creating this pathway has been a critical partner in decreasing barriers and increasing access to OT education for that specific population. So it's a great pathway to OT exposure. I think it's a better pathway to OT exposure than connecting with high school students. I think connecting with high school students is great, but I feel like you'll have a more attainable outcome that you can track when you really start building pathways with local community colleges. So with pathway development comes mentorship. So we have to remember that we can't forget the mentorship piece. It's important to fuse this component into any program that you create. And Helen did a wonderful job in the beginning of this presentation to talk to you about the Minority Mentorship Program. What we've been noticing is that OT programs can also incorporate these concepts when developing pathway ideas. So lastly, for the sake of time, I do want to touch on the significance of providing student supports. So developing safe spaces and student organizations such as COTAD chapters are critical in providing opportunity for students to be empowered, heard, and represented. As a COTAD co-founder and COTAD chapter coordinator, I'm shout out to all my chapters on this call right now and my faculty liaisons. I am so proud to see students across the country passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They are taking the lead in this work, which is so important for the future of our profession. And I am inspired every single day by the discussions that students are having about the impact that they want to see. So I have to say there are over now 65 chapters across this country in educational programs, OT and OTA. This has been around now for about 2 years, and we're starting 2 more this week. The COTAD chapter was specifically designed to support students to work together to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within occupational therapy education programs and within the profession. So the aim is to create opportunities and resources that foster conversation and increase awareness of different lived experiences in order to increase cultural humility. And I must say that our students and our chapters were activated and ignited before June, before everyone decided to get ignited and riled up about the execution of George Floyd. These students have been at this work for a little bit over 2 years now, and we are so proud to see programs and institutions stepping up since June to be part of the COTAD chapter family. So again, excited about the work and can't give a high five enough to the students doing making amazing changes within their programs. And we've also developed a community of leaders, our chapter chairs, who are dialoguing with each other across the country. Now, I wish as a student, when I was a student, that I had a network of like-minded individuals that I could call my friends and fellow leaders and colleagues after I graduated. These students are connecting with each other, they are collaborating with each other, and not just within their programs, but across the country. And I also must say that several of our past chapter chairs, which I see Whitney Harris on this, who is one of the newest COTAD board members, I have to give a shout out, are now in leadership positions with COTAD National. And so for me, there's a clear link between COTAD chapters and leadership development in this work. So I believe we are developing leaders who are going to continue in their state associations, our national association, AOTA, and within COTAD National. And for the sake of time, we're going to hop into breakout groups, but I will be expanding more on these topics as well as the importance of inclusive pedagogy during the AOTA Ed Summit keynote. Dr. Adam Pearson and I will be speaking during the keynote, as well as we can talk. I'm always willing to talk, and reach out to me if you want to ever to speak individually about some of these concepts and some of this work that we're developing. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope that we kept on schedule, Lexi, for the breakouts. I know that's important, and I really appreciate all of your energy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Arame. Thank you for that wonderful information. And as a major vision behind this Ignite series, we just very much appreciate all that you bring to this event this evening. So, and that was Dr. Arame as a major vision behind the Ignite series. So now as we move into our breakouts, this is going to be really exciting, and we want to allow about 20 minutes to have each of you move into a smaller room where you'll get a chance to chat with one another and share conversations. We're going to use a Google Doc. So we would like each of you to please find the link to the Google Doc in the chat, open it up, and have it available so you can add ideas that you're discussing in your breakout rooms, add your own thoughts while you're in these rooms, so that we can have a shared document that we will all have access to moving forward. So we think this is a really nice way to hear what's going on in other rooms, and a nice resource that you all will have leaving this session. So in these rooms, we're going to ask that you think about 2 questions, and these 2 questions are indicated on the Google Doc. So we really want to hear about and give you an opportunity to discuss some of the challenges that current or prospective OT students of color face within the context of an OT education program. And then we want to know something specific that an OT educator can do to demonstrate cultural responsiveness and to better support students of color in the teaching and learning process. So a major feature of our Ignite events is action. So we want to know what each of you could consider doing, or how you could inspire others to act to make change in these areas of need. So at this time, we're going to have about 20 minutes for breakouts, and Stephanie Lancaster is going to send us there. Take it away.
You should see a link inviting you to a room. Is there anybody here who is having trouble getting to their room?
Yeah, I was the only one in my room.
Okay. Who is that talking? I can't see.
This is Tao, and I
Okay.
was supposed to be room 8, but there was nobody there.
Okay, let me move you. Just sorry about that.
No worries.
Sometimes we have it distributed and people are not going there. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm gonna send you to room 4.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Oh, thank you. I joined the breakout room and then I was the only one in it. Can I be added to another one?
Sure. Do you know what room you were in?
I was in room 1.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. All right. There we go.
This is Tal. I'm still here. I didn't get the invite to the breakout room 4. Or whichever room you want to send me to.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try a different one. I'll send you to 13. If you have something open on your screen, it may
Oh, wait a second. Let me open
pop up behind it.
Okay. No, I don't see anything.
All right.
Join breakout room. Oh, here you go. So I got it. Join breakout room 13.
Okay.
Or 16 now.
Okay. All right. I think we got everybody in a room.
You're doing awesome.
That is great. We had an open house last night with incoming students. It'll start in January. And there was one student who I could not get in a room. I mean, I kept trying to like move her to a different room and she kept saying, I don't see it. I don't see it. So finally I was like, okay, just you and I are going to talk.
Right.
I don't know what else to do.
That's where I'm wondering. So who else? So it looks.
I think we forgot about the Google Doc.
Oh, well, let's add now. So
Yeah,
we have
you can
it.
go into
I'm pulling it up right now. I'm pulling it up.
Yay,
Thank you.
Dr. Fisher.
All right. All right.
Pull it up, pull it up.
I should have known better, but I didn't. I was focused on listening.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
That's.
I don't think anyone else from our group typed into it, but let me know if you did.
Dr. Fisher, I wrote in the Google Doc.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
One thing that
see,
we
that's
talked
I don't need
about.
to do anything. That's good.
No, you're good. I wrote in some of the things we talked about.
Great. Thank you, Elise.
Who is beginning to share?
I think
I
Ryan.
was just going to say one thing that we talked about it was just building relationships. It was such a powerful tool for pre-OT students to be able to not be intimidated by faculty members, but also having faculty be very responsive to them when they reach out, to really foster those relationships and get to know the students and have the students be able to really express the passion and reasons why they're connecting with our profession. And I think that that's a really valuable way that we as educators can also step back out into their realm and invite them into that relationship and make it an okay space for them to ask of us, you know, what does it take and what can I do? So that was, I think, a really powerful thing that we talked about in making sure was happening.
Thank you, Ryan.
I can add something from our group that may be in the Google Doc, but I never really thought about the summer programs that now seem like there are more going to be more of them. That we have a pre-OT club at UIC that I'm the advisor for, and some of my students would probably be interested in knowing about those programs. So if there's a way for COTAD to maybe pull together a listing of them or contact our website, I did take what I could from the chat from the speakers. But I think it would be a great, fairly easy thing to do, hopefully, for the COTAD chapters to indicate if they have that kind of summer program, because then I could share it with our pre-OT. We have a very diverse university in terms of the student body, and so I could share it with my pre-OT club that I'm in contact with, and we can have someone, we can talk about it, or they can have one of you come in and speak about it. I think that would be great.
That is a fabulous idea.
Absolutely, Dr. Fisher.
Yeah, it's from the students because they said they didn't know anything about it. And I said, well, I didn't really know about it either. So we got to get the word out.
Yeah.
Hi. So one thing we discussed was the pre-OT programs as well. And one concern I had, I was devastated when I didn't get into one of them. However, I think since there's obviously only a small amount of people that you can accept to a program, still giving information and resources to the students that don't get accepted. For me, I was really alone in the OT process. I didn't know where to start. My advisors didn't know much about OT. So just having, I don't know, these programs still send information and resources that could be beneficial to people that don't get into the program.
Fantastic idea. Absolutely. Love that.
Really good idea, Kayla.
Hello, I just wanted to add two things that my group and I talked about. And one was to increase representation within occupational therapy educators and program directors, which I think it's a powerful thing for people of color to see other occupational therapy professors of color as well. And the other thing was being responsible to ensure our students are having fieldwork experiences in sites that are inclusive, including a student of colors in making sure that we include students of color in the fieldwork placement process and following up on a consistent basis, making sure that we understand and are keeping track of their experiences in that specific site.
Excellent. Absolutely.
One thing that my group we spoke about was, let me pull up, it's just that we wanted, well, understanding that there should be more exposure to understanding occupational therapy to minorities and SOAP notes, and not feeling like we're held to such a high standard of grammar for those that speak a second language, and understanding that maybe showing us from an OT educator to someone like myself or anybody else who does speak a second language to really hone in on grammar when it comes to documentation and it comes to writing, whether it's holding different workshops and not just going based off of a SOAP note documentation book, but really honing in on understanding how to write SOAP notes as far as having to speak a second language.
Thank you. Excellent ideas. And thank you all for the many things you're sharing. This is wonderful.
We were in the same group, and Elise and I was talking about how, you know, if we did some kind of, because being the diverse campus that we are, we get a lot of people, whether it's Spanish, English, but a lot of other people from other countries, et cetera. And having some kind of more collaborative kind of coaching group, maybe it's students that are 1 year ahead that could even help to run it, or our OTD students could run it for the master's students, or a faculty member would volunteer to have kind of a coaching session on documentation specifically for students that have either that are bilingual or have English as a second language.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll have our chat open for. Was it one more person? Yes. Go.
Yeah.
Go.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was
No.
do I unmute? Do I mute? Do I unmute? Do I mute?
Go for it.
Yeah, we talked about myself. So I'm in my first trimester of my OT program. And one thing that I guess I would wish to see more of is just myself and communities like myself talked about in the teaching necessarily aspect of it. I think that in the way in which things have been going, it's more so taught from a perspective that I personally can't always relate to in regards to case studies that they use during classes and just things like that. So I think that for professors just to teach more from other perspectives rather than just one single-minded.
Thank
Good
you.
point. And COTAD has been working on a case study library that we also have a glossary as well. But the case study library is really for a resource that Nikki's putting in a resource for this as well. So hopefully that will be helpful for faculty.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for sharing and sharing personal stories and sharing within your groups. It really was a fantastic event tonight. And as we wrap up, I just wanted to mention again that this information will be available. We'll have the recording available, and we'll have the Google Doc, we'll have the slides. So thank you. And Just to kind of close on 2 bits of inspiration for you all, please take a moment to review these quotes. The first by Marian Wright Edelman and the second by Stephanie Lancaster, as 2 things to consider moving forward as you ignite change in the communities you're a part of. So again, these resources are going to be available, some on our COTAD Ed page. And so we have a Padlet that is active where we can post resources, and that is available to any who visit the page. So we had our Google Doc from our second Ignite session of this series available there. So we'll make our Google Doc from this series available there as well. And we try to continue to update this page. And those of you who want to remain connected to COTAD Ed, please check out this website, send us an email. We do try to gather when we can. This was a photo from Education Summit that happened a few years back. We were in Louisville, I recall, but we do try to gather when we can at conferences. So I can't wait to see all of you who want to remain connected with the COTAD Ed community in the future. And we do have resources specific to anti-racism available on our COTAD page. So I wanted to draw your attention to that. And again, these are our media pages. Make sure to follow them. That YouTube, COTAD YouTube media, that is where the video from tonight will be posted. And I wanted to also draw your attention to our Book Plus Club. This is a space that's available to anyone if you'd like to continue to share conversations with others. We'll typically share a book or a podcast or a resource that folks will review before the event. And then this is a space where we discuss it. So please join us. Again, this is open to all. And lastly, before we wrap up, I wanted to get you all super ignited about our Series 3 of Ignite. So with that, I would like to welcome Devlin New.
Hey y'all, thanks for giving me a few moments of your time. My name is Devlin. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. And I want you to be ready for the fire that is coming. That's Ignite 3. Our first, we have a working title, but our first series will be focused on the experience of being out as a member in the LGBTQIA+ community in the workforce. So stay tuned and look for the links to sign up for that event.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb. Well, thank you again all for attending. Save the date, October 29th. It's a Thursday in 3 weeks. We'll see you again then. Take care all. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I think we're just almost down to the core crew.
You know, I love how I love removing people out. So, you know, I'm hitting
And put people in the waiting room.
Yeah.
I can go night-night.
Christina, I don't know if you, I responded to your Roland Spackman comment.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was, I didn't even think about it until after it happened, but it was a very big deal that I was an author for this last edition. And the fact that Black men and women were actually represented in the cases and in photos and stuff like that, because no one had thought to do that before.
Yep.
You know,
awesome.
like something
I did see that.
basic. Yeah.
Yeah, I responded, but I don't know if it went through. So I'm sorry if it didn't.
Oh, okay. And
first of all, that's dope that you're an author, Kalila. Super dope. First of all, didn't know that, and that needs to be celebrated, and we should definitely put that. We need to put that somewhere. Yeah, because I'll get that version.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great point, Christina, that you made. First of all, shout out Lexi. Shout out Lexi.
No, good. It was the team. It's always the team, but yeah.
Wow, we did it. We're done with Ignite 2.
It went really well tonight.
Yeah.
I am like so happy. And I love all this stuff so much. I just want it to keep going and going more and more.
And it's so dope to see our new board members in the breakout in the
Yeah.
Hi, Ryan.
Yes, you
Hello,
guys.
Ryan.
Jumping right in.
But yes, you
Jumping
guys
right
were
in.
both so like engaged.
Thank you.
I was like, you better bring it with the comments. And
Coming in with the quotes. I was like,
Yeah.
yes.
Something questions.
Stay,
help.
Dante.
yes, Deb and Michelle, as always, at social media. I cannot wait to go look at it. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you rocked it, man.
Yeah, thank you,
Oh, you
Stephanie.
too. I thought it was
Slay.
so good. We
All
had
your
lots of good
help.
engagement in the
Rocked
chat.
it.
All the slay.
All the slay. So
Cool.
thank you everyone for staying on. Alexia, I don't know if there's anything you want to share because I don't want to keep everyone
No,
on
let's
too much,
move
but-
on. I'm so grateful. Thank you all for all your help. It's all I really
Arame, do you have a ring light on? You're glowing.
You know, it's still early in Cali, y'all. Listen, listen.
I'm like, what the
That's that
heck?
natural pretty.
I was thinking that,
Natural
Deb.
You know, I've been telling Khalil I've been drinking my water all day, my lemon water. It's just,
That's your secret.
that is my secret right now. Like, it's daytime. But my
You
ring
gotta
light
drink
is
more
right
water and live in California.
Yeah, hashtag blessed.
Yes,
I got the New
yes.
York skin.
Yeah, listen, my ring light is over there when I decided one day that I want to be a real influencer. I just need to use it.
Sure, when you really
I need
stepping
to
up.
use it. Yeah.
Listen, you're already an influencer. I was getting private messages asking if you were going to speak tonight.
What?
So,
No way.
Wow.
Yes.
I told Lexi, like, don't have me speak no more. People are tired of hearing my voice.
No.
wants to hear me
No.
speak.
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the love.
Okay.
All right.
So we're
okay,
still recording. Is that okay?
we should stop recording. Well, Tina, you want to take your picture, girl? Because then we could stop recording and then we could re-record for the actual UNLV thing.